In January 2025, an Argentina user posted a Spanish language poem as an 8-slide carousel on Instagram, criticizing the government's treatment of marginalized groups and calling for people to protest. This post was shared days before protests broke out in Argentina against a speech made by the country's president, Javier Milei, at the World Economic Forum, criticizing radical feminism and the LGBT agenda. In one of the slides in this carousel, the poem used reclaimed slurs. The reason to use these reclaimed slurs was to provoke thought, to advocate against people's indifference, against some changes that, according to the user's view, were affecting these vulnerable groups. And although using reclaimed language is vital for marginalized communities to challenge discrimination, to empower themselves, Meta's automated systems flagged this image and it was removed because it was considered hate speech. When we look at why that happened, we see that because only one of the 8 slides that formed the carousel was reviewed by a human reviewer, the context, the meaning of the post, of the poem itself, was completely lost. This was also compounded by the fact that Meta's reviewers are not allowed to consider context within and outside of the posts to determine their intent and meaning. The board saw that under these circumstances, it would have been virtually impossible for a reviewer to have determined that their slurs were used in a permissible way. The board overturned Meta's original decision to take down part of the poem on Instagram. The case is about over-enforcement of political speech in a moment of protests where people's voice is particularly relevant to exercise in the civic space. But the problem is not only that a specific speech was over-enforced or the specific content was over-enforced, but that Meta's approach to content moderation makes that same mistakes to be very likely in the future. What the board's position is not only to address this issue of over-enforcement, but rather for Meta to adopt measures that will make over-enforcement more unlikely in the future. We made 2 recommendations to Meta. The first one is that whenever reviewers are reviewing content within a carousel, they're able to have access to the full carousel before making a decision. This is to avoid the problem that we identified, in which the reviewers assessed one specific slide of the content without taking into consideration the full poem that flowed in different slides. Secondly, we asked Meta to develop a process to ensure that the different content types, whenever they are launched or whenever they are updated or their usage changes, that they have the adequate processes and tooling in order to adequately moderate content on these content types, such as, for example, carousels, which were launched 8 years ago by the company, but have changed in their usage, and the enforcement mechanisms by which Meta moderates content should be in line with those changes in the usage of their own content types.